core value for me. So freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of location. And I ended up picking up the same book everybody else picks up, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think my
Mm.
mom had it, a copy in our office, and really was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, double down on real estate." And so that was like very early on. But at the time, we were still on dial up AOL, right? There wasn't as much information accessible. And so it was kind of like, oh, you have to wait till you grow up to do that. And so I didn't really have the tools or the knowledge or the opportunity to like dive in at that age. But I always knew it was something it was my path, definitely.
Can you give us a little insight on what Rich Dad Poor Dad's taught you from a
Yeah.
Yeah.
investment
Oh my
perspective?
Kevin
gosh.
and
So
Aisha Shelton talked about Rich
Yeah,
Dad
this is
Poor
the
Dad
second
too.
time one
Yeah.
of our show guests have mentioned that.
I
So
have a
let's
love-hate relationship with Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think there's an oversimplification. And because, and Garland, you know this about me, I'm a pretty political person and I don't really espouse to everything that the creator believes in. So I have a hard time like supporting all of it.
and is that the author's Mr.
Robert Kiyosaki.
Robert Kiyosaki?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the book really is teaching you about a mindset, and it's teaching you how to break out of working for a paycheck, a 9 to 5, and move into the different quadrants of wealth, which you could be an investor, you could be a business owner. And so what the advantages are for each quadrant and how you can get into each quadrant and why you should eventually get into the quadrant of real estate and having passive income. So I think it creates this environment where everybody's like, passive income, passive income, passive income. But there's so much work that you have to do to get to that point.
Amen.
And there's a lot of ways you can do it and a lot of paths you can take. And a lot of that is stuff that you just kind of have to figure out on your own. But I love the book for planting the seeds.
Mm.
And I think that without it, I think it honestly changed a generation of people. I really do think it did. Just because it was a concept that was not widely available before. So, yeah.
Yeah, on the topic of passive income, that's a very popular term these days where everyone's always talking about passive income, passive income. But I think a lot of people have the wrong idea of what passive income is. People believe that they're going to build something, it's going to become passive income, and then they're going to sit on the beach all day. And I'm like, no, even the world's billionaires aren't sitting on beaches every day because if you don't actually run your company, then somebody else is going to run it and they may run it to the ground or they may run you out of business or they may be stealing from you because you're not paying attention. But
Exactly.
you touched on the subject of that you have to build these things, the element of work. And I think most people come from when they hear passive, they think I'm not doing anything at all. But there are things that are passive that still require,
Work.
some work
Yeah,
because you
Maintenance,
management,
yeah,
management,
maintenance.
yeah,
and research, due
yeah,
diligence.
yeah. I mean,
Like,
even if you own property, right? If you're, an Airbnb host or if you're doing long-term rentals, it's passive income, but there's still an active part to it because you have to manage that property. Now, the amount of hours that you're devoting to it might not be on par with as working a 9 to 5. So when I think of passive income, I think about what is something that I can do that'll make money that doesn't require me to work 40 hours a week.